Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Point Beyond webinar on Power BI, the new way to quickly build powerful dashboards. Before we start, I just want to say that this session is being recorded and you can use the GoToMeeting toolbar to post questions to us. Also, we will make the recording available to everyone who signed up afterwards. My name is Ian Woodgate and I'm Managing Director of Point Beyond, and I'm actually very excited to talk to you about Power BI. I started off from a slightly cynical position with Power BI because I know that Microsoft are desperately keen to get people into the cloud, and my original thinking was, oh, here's another cloud-based offering from Microsoft just to try and shoehorn people into the cloud. But I've actually really changed my mind about it as I've worked with it more, and really come to the conclusion that this is a really powerful technology. It's really pretty cool and pretty impressive stuff. So what I'm also pleased to say today is that most of this session will be demos. I've only got a dozen or so slides which I intend to rattle through very quickly, and then most of it I want to be actually hands-on, showing you Power BI and how it works and actually building up some dashboards. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Ian Woodgate, as I've said, the Managing Director and Founder of Point Beyond Limited. I've been working with SharePoint and associated technologies for many years, for well over a decade. I'm actively speaking on the SharePoint circuits, and I run the SharePoint UK user group for the South Coast with meetings out of Southampton. Okay, so our agenda for this session really is as follows. I want to just briefly introduce the concept of self-service business intelligence and explain kind of what we think we mean by that. We'll then have a look at a kind of high-level explanation of what Power BI from Microsoft actually is, and then we're going to launch straight into the demos. Now, as I said, this session will be mostly demos. So I'm going to be relying on my internet connection, obviously, and I'm going to be relying on a fairly new Microsoft technology. So do bear with me, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for that side of things. Obviously, as I said, we've got the questions panel on the side. Do feel free to post questions at any time. I'll probably handle the questions at the end of the session today, though, because we do have a lot to get through. Okay, so what do we actually mean when we talk about self-service business intelligence? So I like this quote. When I was researching this this session, I came across this, what I thought was a very good quote from Gartner, which is, self-service business intelligence is end users designing and deploying their own reports and analysis within an approved and supported architecture and tools portfolio. And I like that. I think there's three kind of key points that come out of this. The first one is the focus on end users. It's about business people, data analysts, creating their own reports and dashboards, removing or reducing the reliance on IT and increasing their ability to quickly get the answers that they need from their data. It's also about supported architecture and tools. So it's about IT managing and supporting the computing infrastructure and the capability that's required to deliver the SSBI capability, rather than about IT actually creating the reports and the dashboards and the visualizations for the business. And I guess the last thing to highlight there as well is what this is not about. It's not about kind of cowboy data miners attaching Access databases or Excel workbooks directly to your enterprise systems in some kind of free-for-all kind of let's get at the data any which way we can. And just to touch quickly as well, what are the key benefits around successful SSBI platforms? The first one is that the business is able to get visualizations and answers to questions more quickly, because we eliminate the bottleneck of IT having to create reports, create visualizations, and perform analysis. It increases the accuracy of the results that we're getting from our BI, because we put the analysis and the reporting capabilities into the hands of our business users, who at the end of the day are the people most familiar with the data.
Without like waiting for it. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if someone's not on mute there, but if somebody can just mute, that would be great. Thank you. And lastly, we've got profitability. If the business can more quickly find the information they need and react to the data and the insights that they've gained from analyzing their data, they should be able to to drive more successful business and to succeed more effectively. Okay, so that's kind of background. That's really where we're coming from, this whole kind of concept of self-service BI. What I really want to do now is move straight into talking a little bit about Power BI. So Power BI is the self-service BI solution using Microsoft Excel and Office 365. And I should highlight the Office 365 piece of this. At the time of this, as I'm speaking now, Power BI is a cloud-only offering from Microsoft. Well, as far as I'm aware, there are no definite plans, or there have been rumours, there are no definite plans to move it on-premise. I kind of would be surprised if Microsoft made an on-premise version of it available. I think Microsoft's very keen to move people to the cloud, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's where Power BI stays. But hey, I may be proved wrong. We shall see. So Power BI is actually a marketing brand, really. There are several components or constituents to it. So what I want to do to explain that is to just drill down into them in a little bit more detail. So we've got kind of two halves. We've got Excel, which is the primary tool that we're using to discover and collect the data, to analyze our data, and to create our visualization of our data. And then we've got the Power BI kind of capability. This is the cloud-based offering from Microsoft. This is where we publish our visualizations and our reports. We can share data, share connections, share queries. We can do some cool stuff with Q&A, and that's really cool, and I'll show you that in a minute. We can make our information available to mobile devices. So although the full thing has got this reliance on Office 365, a lot of the functionality that you get in Excel is available anyway. So even if you're not using the cloud-based part of it, the Office 365 part, there is some functionality in Excel which you can still make use of. So let's drill down into these two components now in a little bit more detail, starting with Excel. So there's several editions here that are available for Excel, and we're talking here either Excel 2013 or Excel 365. The downloadable version of Excel that you get if you've got the right kind of Office 365 tenant. The key components that we've got that plug into Excel, it has to be Excel 2013. That is, you have to use Excel 2013 to build the visualizations. You don't have to have Excel installed if you want to just view. So viewing is done through a browser if you're using Power BI in the cloud, that is. So the first thing we've got is Power Query. So Power Query is really the new way to get data into Excel. You can kind of think of it as like data connections on speed. Far more powerful than the old format style of data connections, connects to a wide range of different data sources. You can search for data, you can transform, shape, merge, combine your data, do lots of powerful data manipulation very easily within Excel and Power Query. We'll be looking at this in the demo. Power Query you can download as an add-in for Excel 2013. If you've got an Office 365 Power BI license, you get some extra features that will kind of light up, but even without that subscription, you can still make use of Power Query. It's a great way to get data into Excel. The next element here we've got here is Power Pivot. And Power Pivot is really the BI kind of modeling tool in Excel. This is where we define the data and the relationships between the data that we've got. What it actually is it's a very highly performant in-memory database that sits within Excel. And it performs very well. I've certainly seen demos with Power BI where we've got tables with hundreds of millions of rows in, and those will load into that database within Excel and be sortable and manageable, and it works absolutely fine. So it's very high performant, very high scale database, in-memory database. We can also do things there like we can create custom measures, we can create hierarchies, KPIs, this kind of thing as well. So it's our modeling tool for modeling our data. And the last thing that we've got here is Power View, and Power Map, I should say. And these are all about data visualizations. These are the tools where we build our interactive visualizations and create our dashboards that we can publish up to our users so that they're able to analyze the data in more meaningful ways. Power Map I won't be demoing that today. There just isn't time to do everything. But Power Map is a kind of specialist mapping visualization tool that allows us to create nice scenes and kind of fly around spinning globes and do nice kind of whizzy things like that. But we will be looking at everything else on this demo, on this slide today when we come to the demos. So that's the Excel side of things. Now let's look at the kind of Power BI for Office 365 side of things and what's available within that. So I'm going to split this into two halves. The first half is the kind of administrative side of things. This is not something that your end users will interact with, but it's something that administrators will have to work with. The first thing we've got is the Power BI Admin Center. This is where we kind of do all of our configuration. We configure our data management gateway and our different roles for our users, where we can look at error logs, etc., etc. The next thing we've got is what's called the Managed Data Portal. This is where people at Microsoft term data stewards are able to view and manage the queries that are being defined. So basic data stewards can say, yes, this is the authoritative source of customers or projects or whatever it may be, this kind of thing. We won't actually look at that in detail, but it's fairly straightforward, fairly straightforward piece of functionality. The next thing we've got is the data catalog. This is a cloud service. You don't interact with it directly, but it provides us with the ability to share connections and share queries, and also search capability, which again we will see in a minute in the demo. And the last thing that I think is really quite cool and quite clever is the data management gateway. So we will look at this. This is a piece of software, a Windows service with a simple management UI that's installed client side. So it's installed. Sorry, this is client side. I mean, it's on premise. It's installed on-premise on the server, and now it can hook up to your on-premise data sources and basically make that data available to Power BI in the cloud. And it does that in a clever way so that you don't have to punch any incoming holes in your firewalls. It just needs an outgoing HTTP internet connection, and it's then able to publish your data as OData feeds available for consumption from cloud-based services. The nice thing about that is we can create a visualization in Excel, and this is what we'll be doing in the demo. We can that can consume on-premise data sources. We can publish that visualization to Office 365, to Power BI, and then we can refresh the data, refresh our on-premise data in that visualization, even though the visualization is now hosted in the cloud. It's a very nice piece of functionality. So that's the admin side of things. The next area to consider is kind of the user view, the consumption side of things, and what aspects will they be working with. The first thing is Power BI sites. This is the main place where users will come to consume visualizations, to see reports and dashboards. These Power BI sites, they're based on SharePoint sites. They are SharePoint sites, and Power BI is actually an app, SharePoint 2013 app that's been added in to a SharePoint online site, and we'll see that in a minute. The next area we've got is the Power BI Q&A language. This is really nice, and I'll show this at the end. It's worth hanging on to this webinar just to see this. This is where you can kind of ask natural language questions to Power BI, and it will interpret what you're saying and provide you with the results in what format that it thinks are the most appropriate. We've got Power BI mobile applications. We will have a look at these as well. So these are apps currently available for Windows 8 or Windows 8.1 with ones for iPad and I believe Android planned as well. These applications or these apps allow users to kind of have a nice kind of app experience when they're looking at the dashboards, and we'll take a quick look at those as well. So you're probably pleased to know that's about it for slides. I'm going to move into the demo now. And we're going to demo two things today. The first thing that I want to demo is simply how we can use Power BI to publish an OData feed. And the scenario here is, like many organizations, we've got a database that contains our list of customers, and I'm just using customers as an example. We want to make that available to people when they're working in Excel, but we don't want to have 10 different copies of Excel with 10 different customer lists. We want everyone to be clear where the definitive list of customers is, no matter where they're working. We want it all to be updatable, to come from the same data source. We want it to be authoritative, and we want it to be easy to find. So just going to show quickly how we can use Power BI to do that. The second thing that we're going to do is I'm going to do a start to finish creating and publishing a Power BI dashboard. And the scenario for that we based it on is a consultancy business who wants to take data from their timesheets database and create an interactive report for business users so they can see things like customers, projects, revenue, and so forth and so on. I should say as well at this point that all the data is entirely fictitious, so please don't read anything into any customer names you see or any rates you see. It's all entirely made up. Okay, so what we're going to do with that second demo is we're going to connect to our SQL Server database from Excel. We're going to define some data relationships. We're going to transform the data. We're going to create some measures and some KPI, and then we're going to create some nice visualizations. We're going to publish that up to Power BI, and last of all, we'll show it synchronizing with on-premise data. So quite a lot to do. What I will do now is I shall stop the PowerPoints, and we'll go and take a look at Power BI itself. So what I've got here, I should just bring up my browser. It's come off on the wrong screen. Here's my Office 365 tenant, and this is an Office 365 tenant where we've installed Power BI. So Power BI is an optional extra service that you can purchase within Office 365. If you do that, what you'll see is you get a link to Power BI up here, and on the Admin tab here, there's also a link to the Power BI Admin Center. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. One of the nice things I quite like about Power BI is it's kind of quite intuitive to use. It seems quite well organized. Everything's very clear. Doesn't seem to be too much complexity. So we're in the Admin Center here, and you can see we've just got half a dozen tabs. We've got a general kind of system health where we can see logs and information about what's going on. We've got data sources. I'll come back to that in a second. We've got gateways. Again, I'll come back to that in a second. We've got role management. This is where we define who our users are and what they can do, whether administrators or this kind of role that Microsoft has defined called data stewards. Some more other settings, not very much really there. And also for quite a helpful, useful help center. It contains quite a lot of useful information. So let me explain gateways first of all. So a gateway is a gateway to an on-premise, your on-premise systems. What Power BI allows you to do is download to your local machine what's called a data management gateway, and you can see that I've got one set up here. This is actually a Windows service with a simple form-based UI. This will connect to on-premise data sets and data sources and make them available to Power BI in the cloud. It's not really very much to configure. There's a simple home page. There's some settings there. You can change the port and whether it's HTTP or HTTPS. But this is outgoing as well. As I said, you don't need to open any ports. If your server that's running Data Management Gateway has got internet access, then you're fine. You don't need to do any inbound connections at all. And there's a help page. Doesn't really say very much. And that's it. When you want to create a new gateway, simply come in here, press New Gateway, describe your gateway, click Create. So put it into what it will do. So it will give you a gateway key. You take that, you copy that key, you go to your on-premise data management gateway and insert the key here. That's obviously something I've done. So I've now got this gateway is configured, it's registered, and it's hooked up to my Power BI tenant here. So that's great. The next thing I want to do, I'll just delete that one. Let's just leave it. There we go. The next thing I want to do is explain data sources, and we're going to create our new data source here, which is our customers list. Okay, so I can click on data sources here. You can see I've got one that I've already set up here earlier. But the data source that I'm going to connect to for this demo is SQL Server. I've got SQL Server Express running on my laptop here. And you can see here I've got a table here, which is my customers table. Okay. So pretty vanilla stuff. So the interesting thing here now is that in order to connect to that data source which is running locally, I'm going to do that using the Power BI Admin Center, so from within the cloud, going back through my data management gateway. So we just come in here, and we go New Data Source. At the moment it supports SQL, Oracle, or Power Query. I'm going to go for SQL Server. It gives me a choice here of how my data source is going to be used. I can either enable it for cloud access, so this means that workbooks, Excel spreadsheets that I've published up to the cloud can connect back to that data source and refresh, or I can expose the data as no data feed so that other on-premise users can make use of that data feed. So I'm going to choose the latter for this particular demo. So that's fine. We say next. Asks us for some information about our connection, so we're going to call it customers information. Let's call it authoritative, definitive customers list, say past and present, whatever it may be. And we need to select our gateway, so I've only got one defined, which might be Ian's PC. My data source type is SQL Server. I'm going to connect to it by specifying some connection strings down here. My server name is Ian Laptop SQL Express. My database name is time tracking. So now it needs some credentials to connect to my database. And this is quite interesting because Microsoft don't want the credentials to access your on-premise systems. And to be honest, you probably don't want Microsoft to have that information either. So what happens here when I press set credentials is it actually downloads and launches a little click to run application, which is here. And this tool here will communicate directly with my data management gateway. So the connections will pass from one client-side application to another, so one on-premise application to another on-premise application. Your credentials are never going to go up into Microsoft's cloud. So for this demo, I'm connecting using database type credentials. Test that connection, and that's actually going to test the connection from the data management gateway service to my database. And that's been fine, so that's okay. So those credentials are now registered with my on-premise data management gateway. So that's fine, we can next on that. Now let's say it's gone and it's queried that database, it's identified all the tables and all the views that are available. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to expose my customers, which I know is that one. Okay, that's fine. Saying who do you want to have access to it, and let's just say, there's one setting I forgot to set, sorry, let me just go back. Oh no, it's further on, I beg your pardon. Comes that in a minute. Let's just say I want to make everyone in my organisation to have access to this. That's fine. Finish. So that's created my data source. There we go, definitive customers list, past and present. So there's one change I need to make. I need to come in here and I want to set the visibility of that data cells, which is now available here. Make it public, available to everyone. Save that. Okay, so we've now defined our customers information data source. What I'm going to do now is going to switch over to Excel and show how an on-premise user can make use of that data source. So let's fire up Excel. Okay, so here's Excel 2013. I'm going to open a blank workbook up, and I'm going to go to Power Query, which is one of the tabs up here, and I'm actually going to do an online search. So, and I'm interested in customers. So we've run that search. It actually searches both on-premise, so within my organisation. It also goes out to the internet and finds data sources that might be of interest. But for me now, I'm interested in my organisation, and it's found there, my list. So you can imagine defining a whole set of data sources, allowing people across your business to connect, to find them in that way. Out of interest, you can see there as well, it's got the URL available as well. So I'm happy with that data source. I can select it, and we'll load it in. So there we go, I've now got my definitive list of customers. But we've done that in a managed and secured way. None of our business users have got direct connections into my line of business database. So we remain in control. If we want to now, we can use Power Query to amend this query as we see fit, and I'll show you a bit more about that in a minute. And we can also, if we want to start sharing this query with other people, we can come in here and share it, make it similarly searchable and available to other people. We can also do things like include links to documentation, upload some rows for preview. Okay, so that really just goes to show, that's the end of the first demo. It just goes to show how we can use Power BI as a service to make data available to business users within Excel in a way that's manageable and is not going to overload our line of business systems. We can secure it appropriately. Everyone is going to be able to easily find the information that they need, and the data will stay up to date. Okay, so that really concludes the first demo. One more thing I will show actually before I do close this. I just want to highlight with Power Query the range of data sources that you can connect to. It is worth taking a quick look at that. If we go here, we can take data from files, we can take data from a whole range of databases, we can take ranges of data from a whole range of other data sources, OData feeds, Microsoft Exchange, Active Directory, SAP, and also even from web. This is quite a cool functionality as well. You can point it to a web page and it will extract data from a table that it finds within the web page. So a huge range of data sources that you can connect to from Power Query. Okay, let's close that. The next demo that I want to show is how you can go soup to nuts to create a dashboard using Power BI. Now obviously I'm not going to be following best practices, I'm going to be cracking through this at a rate of knots, but I really want to get across to you the concepts and also to show that this is really quite easy and quite powerful functionality. So we're going to start with a fresh Excel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Power Query again, and I'm going to get some data from my SQL Server database, again my time tracking data, which is running locally for this purpose of this demo on my own machine in SQL Express. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to say I want to get my data from a database from SQL, type in my server name, and my database, and connect to that. I've entered my credentials previously, so it's just remembered those. Actually, if anyone's wondering why it didn't prompt me. Now I'm going to select multiple tables from my database here. So here's all my tables. Let's choose to select multiple ones. And I'm going to select 5 tables. I'm going to select activity, consultant, customer, project, and time entry. So the first 4 there I think are quite self-explanatory. Time entry is simply a table that shows the amount of work somebody's done on a particular activity for a particular project and a particular customer. So that's fine. When I come to load this data, I've got a choice. I can load it into my worksheet if I like, so it can appear in my SharePoint worksheets, or I can load it to the data model, which basically means putting it into the Power Pivot database. I'm going to choose that. Or I can not load it at all. I can just create the connection definitions if I want to. I'm going to load it. So let's go ahead and do that. Take a couple of seconds to load up the data. Really quite quick though. So you can see there we've loaded, in that time we've loaded 78,000 rows into our time entry database table. Just detecting the relationships. And we're done. So that's great, but now what I need to do is I need to do some work on those data sources, those tables. I need to kind of get them in the right format for my dashboard. So I'm going to focus on the changes that I would want to make to my time entry table, okay? So I can mouse over it there, I can see what columns I've got, I can see a preview of the data. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click and go ahead and actually edit that query in Power Query. So that's just brought up the query editor. Let me just bring this across. So here we can see the data, and what Power Query does is actually builds up a set of steps that we apply to the data. So the first thing that I want to do here is I want to, for each piece of work, each row here, I need to define what revenue I'm getting. And my revenue is going to be simply my rate, my booked rate, times the number of days worked. So what we do is we come in here, we come to insert, and we insert a custom column. I'm going to call my column revenue. And I'm going to say that is booked rate multiplied by days. That's great. And you can see hopefully very quickly we've got that new revenue column defined at the end here. One of the things we do have to do is we have to tell Power Query what data type that is. That's a number. So I'll do that now. And you can see here now on the right hand side it's building up those steps. You can actually go through and replay them if you want to. So some other things I want to do here now is I want to when I analyze my data, I want to analyze it by year and by month. At the moment, the only column I've got here is work date, which is not quite right for me. So the first thing I want to do is change the work date so it's just a date. I'm not interested in the time. So I've done that. And now what I want to do is I want to add a column for the year and then a column for the month. Now, doing the year is easy because I can come in here, I can do insert a date and insert the year, like that. So we've now got a new column here, which is the year. See that down the right far side here. Now you might think that for month it would be the same, but there's a problem. So let me show you that. If I just come here and do month, what I actually get is I get the number of the month, and I don't really want that. I want the name of the month. So what we have to do is we have to do something more advanced here, and we have to switch to a different view. What Power Query actually does is it builds up a language formally called Power Query Formula Language, but informally it's called M. And it looks like this. So you can see here all the steps are being built up as lines in this query language. So there are some things that we can do with query language that the UI doesn't currently support, and one of those is create dates in a format that we want. So I've actually created one earlier, which I should just grab. So I've just got in Notepad here. I've got my my Power Query. I'm going to grab that. Just paste that in. And the line that we're interested in actually is this one here. Okay. So this will create the month in the format that we want. So let's just go ahead and do that. And then you can see here over at the end here now we've now got the month in the format that we want. And that's that action here. You can even do nice things if you want to, like change the locale. See, now I've got the month. Here's the month names in French. So it's quite powerful. Let's take that back. So we're done. One other thing actually I've done here as well is we can remove columns that we're just not interested in. So maybe I've got a column here like maybe we're just not interested in whether it's billable or not, whatever columns it might be. So we can come in here and we can just remove those columns. See now it's put in that removed column step. So we can quickly get the data tables into the format that we want. So that's great. Let's assume that we've done that now. Let's just take that removed column out now. We're going to quit out of this query editor for Power BI, because the next thing we need to do is I want to define the relationships of our data. And we're going to use Power Query to do that. Power Pivot, I beg your pardon, to do that. So let's go to Power Pivot, and I'm going to click on the Power Pivot tab, and then I'm going to click on Manage. So this actually opens in Power Pivot view. What I like to do is take it into the diagram view. And it's extracted the relationships from SQL, but I know they're not quite right. There are some here that I'm just not interested in for the purposes of reporting. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and take those ones out. I'm not interested in that one. I am interested in this one. I'm not interested in that one. I'm not interested in that one. And I am interested in that one. Okay, it's pretty simple stuff. Actually, one of the other things you can do here that's quite nice and worth doing is you can come in here and columns that you need in your model but you don't want to make visible to your end users, you can just hide. So IDs are a great example there. You can come in here and say hide from client tools on the ID on the columns that you don't want to be visible. So they're still in the model, they just won't show in the client tools. Okay. So that's great. So we've got our data. We've done some manipulation of the data using Power Query. We've modeled our data using Power Pivot. Now we're ready to do our visualizations. So we'll come out here, and we can now go to Insert, and we can actually insert our Power View. So we come here and say Insert Power View. It creates a Power View sheet for us. Now we're ready to start adding some visualizations. So for starters, we could say, well, let's take our customer name, and for each customer name, perhaps I want to see the project that they've worked on, so I can go and find project. Obviously, because I didn't hide my columns, you can see I'm seeing a lot of columns here that you perhaps wouldn't really want to show. You'd spend more time in reality filtering out the columns that were displayed here. And maybe I want to show the activity names. And maybe I want to show that number of days that I've worked on each activity. So we can come in and put in the sum of days. Okay, so we've got that kind of view there. We want to quite like this. Perhaps we want to filter that by customer name, so we could put the customer name up here. Get this kind of scrollable view. So we can kind of scroll through, choose a customer, see the number of days by customer. Kind of cool, hey? Perhaps we want to do something else as well. Perhaps we want to see revenue, so perhaps we want to see for each customer, we want to see the revenue, so we can come in here, we can do customer, we can choose customer name and the revenue, which is our calculated column. Maybe we want to see that as a chart, so maybe a column chart, bar chart, something like that. Maybe we want to split that down further. Maybe we want to split that out by activity. Kind of get the idea. And it's all filters as well, so click through here. These will start interacting like that. You can see how we can do that. One thing I forgot to do actually when we were in Power Query is I didn't create a KPI. So let me just flip back quickly to Power Query, to Power Pivot, and we'll do that now. So go back to my data model. Let's say I want to create a KPI, which is my average bill rate. I can do that really easily here. Just come into my revenue column, just enter what the formula is. That's the sum of the revenues divided by the sum of the days. That's right. Okay. Average rate. That's fine. And we just define that as a KPI. So click here and say create KPI. Let's define that as an absolute value, so 1,000, whatever our units are. Set the red and the amber and the green thresholds. Okay, that. Now we've got our little KPI here. Just go and save that now. Okay. Let's refresh our view. Hopefully now we've got our average rate available now as a KPI. So we can put that on to our table like that. Kind of get the idea. So what we can do is we can build up our nice dashboard very quickly. I've actually got one that I've spent a little bit more time preparing, so I'll just flick over to that one now. You get the idea. It's exactly the same data, exactly the same approach. Let me just close this for a minute. And I'll open up this previous one. So similar thing, I've created 2 tabs down here, 2 worksheets, and it's all interactive. We can click here, we can filter a consultant or however we want. You can see the different impact of the different work. It's all nice and interactive. Okay, so when we're happy with that, what we can do is we can go and publish this up to a Power BI site now. So let me just I'll close this. And let's just flick over to a Power BI site. So, as I said earlier, the Power BI site is really just a SharePoint site that's got the Power BI app added into it. So this is one here that I've created. It's just a vanilla team site with the app activated. So we've got a link here that says Power BI. So if I click on Power BI, first time you add it, it gives you a little bit more information. It offers you to add samples. You can do that if you like. I tend to find that a bit confusing. I like to work with my own data better. So let's use my own data. And now it's prompting me to add some reports. So let's go add, and I'll upload a file. I'm going to browse old school way. I'll tell you what, I won't actually just scan that. I'll tell you what, I'll just drag and drop it. It'll be quicker. Let's pick up this spreadsheet, we'll just drop it in there. Gives it a few seconds to process. Okay, so it's found that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a favorite. That means it will appear in my Windows app. I'm also going to add it to featured reports, so it's going to be seen by other people. I'm going to add it to the Q&A. So that's fine, that's there now. People now can just browse to this site. If they've got access, they can click on it. just using their browser. It's using Silverlight by default, but it will degrade to HTML5 if the client doesn't support Silverlight. So not all of the visualizations work at the moment with HTML5, so it's best on Windows devices, but it will work on things like iPads, and obviously Microsoft's going to improve that over time. So we've got our dashboard as before. We can do all the kind of same interactive stuff as we did before. We can click here and see different views, see by different consultants. We can click on our second tab, see some more information here about our revenues. We can see our KPI, and it all looks quite good. We can specify here if we want to go in and filter things in different ways. If I just want to filter by customer like this, choose perhaps 3 customers, and do that kind of thing. Maybe I'm interested in just 3 customers and perhaps to see what particular kind of activity. You get the idea. So very rich interactivity. I've also got a Windows app that I can use. Let me just switch the screen that I'm sharing because that will be on my primary screen. So just bear with me 1 second. Show my main screen. I should launch the app. So this is the app, so Windows 8 app. So you can just come in here, you can click on this. Sonia, please shout if this is not coming through. I hope it is. Similar kind of experience, but in a nice kind of tablet app style. One thing to notice as well, it puts the 2 tabs as 2 different buttons on the view, which is quite nice. So really nice for your execs. They can just walk around and have a dashboard that just works and just shows them the kind of information that they want to see very easily. So that's all well and good. I'll just come out of that, and I think the last thing that I'd like to show you is the natural language query. So let's go back to our browser view, and what I'm going to do is we'll just go back to this main site. I notice at the top, go to Power BI. Note at the top here we've got this Ask with Power BI Q&A, so we can click through on that, and then we can start asking questions of our data just using natural language query. I should say as well, I have done no optimization here. One of the things you can do if you've got more time is you can actually go in and define synonyms from some of your data sets, so you can use more friendly terms and define when somebody says customer, what do they actually mean, so forth and so on. But we can ask it some questions. We could just ask the number of projects, let's say. Okay, 301. Maybe we want to see number of projects by customer name. Okay, you can see that it's automatically determining. Shut that out of the way. It's automatically determining the type of view that it's going to show me. So it's chosen to show me that as a graph. Look, but maybe I want to have that as a table instead. You can change it. Maybe I want to see revenue by consultant name. That by year. I'm just making these up, so there you go. Maybe I want to see revenue by month. Activity. It even suggests alternative ones as well, as you can see. It's revenue per month and activity that's named sales. If I'm just interested in sales. Yeah, and so forth and so on. I mean, you could obviously go on for hours with this and asking it lots of different questions. Last one I will show you quickly, I think it's really cool, is we can do this. We can ask it to show us revenue by county. Now it's prompting me to enable some content. It's going off to Bing, and it's done the visualization like that, so we can see our revenue by county. Maybe we even want to put that a bit further and say, and activity. There it's done the nice little kind of revenue by activity map using Bing for us. So very nice functionality, really powerful. I think you can imagine kind of giving this to business execs and really enabling people to get some real value out of the data that they're working with. So I'll just flip back quickly to PowerPoints to finish. But really, there's not a lot more to say. It's a case kind of like thank you and questions really. So I think if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to ping us an email. Oops, let's go to the end slide. So you can see my contact details. Doing it the slow way, old school. If anyone has any questions now, I'm happy to take them. Also, if people have any questions, let me just put you over to the right view. Clicking between screens here. Happy to take any questions now, and also if you've got any questions in the future, do feel free to drop us an email or give us a call on the number or the email address below. So thank you, hope you found that useful. Let's look at the questions, and we've got quite a few. Hi, access code to the dial-in is coming up as invalid. Hopefully that work has been sorted. Okay. Can we use this within a custom SharePoint template? Yeah, I mean, I think you can, Melanie. It's just an app. So, I mean, it's Office 365 only, but as long as you're running an Office at the moment, as long as if you're running in Office 365, I would think you could just add it as an app. Yeah, let's see why not. Okay, next question is, how well does this scale to large data sets? The answer is pretty well. I've certainly seen it scale to hundreds of millions of rows. You're limited ultimately by the memory capacity of your machine. It works better if you're using Excel 64 bits because you've obviously not got any memory limitations, and there's also a limit on the size of the spreadsheet, which is currently 250 megabytes. But the data is compressed very effectively. If you don't have Office 365, so another question just come up is what can you do if you don't have Office 365? If you don't have Office 365, at the moment you can't use most of this. You can use some of the Excel functions that I've shown you, the Power Query and the Power Pivot and the Power View functionality, but in terms of publishing and the querying, you wouldn't be able to use that. But remember, you don't have to have Office 365 for your whole business. It's certainly doable to spin up an Office 365 tenant just for half a dozen users who might need this kind of functionality. It could be quite a good way to kind of experiment with it, because compared to a traditional BI tool, this is really low cost. It's a few pounds per user per month. Someone just asked me what the price is. The pricing really depends on what Office 365 subscription you have. It's of the order of, sort of 10 to 20 pounds per user per month. It's not big money. Okay, we're almost out of time, I think. So I think I've gone through all the questions. If anyone has any more questions, please post them now. Otherwise, I hope that you found this a useful session, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Thank you very much for attending.